Welcome back to Gen X Horror, where we drone on and on about how damn fantastic retro horror movies are. Today's video is a look at some deep cuts from 1986 and 1987, and maybe a bonus modern-day horror banger that captured that spirit. I was 13 or 14, and man, if these weren't formative movies. Hit the comments with anything I missed, or drop your favorites so we can all relive this golden era of horror movie VHS goodness together. Let's get into it.
Every journey begins in the mind. A flight of imagination.
Remember digging through those bottom shelf VHS rentals and finding that one box art that made you go, what the actual hell is this supposed to be? 1986's From Beyond was definitely one of those discoveries. And man, once you popped that tape in, you knew you were in for something special. It's based on an H.P. Lovecraft story, and this absolute unit of weirdness follows scientists who build a machine called the Resonator. Side note, the sound from the Resonator was actually used in the Beastie Boys song Intergalactic. But the Resonator lets them see into another dimension. Except that dimension is full of floating, brain-eating monsters, and yeah, it turns people into sex-crazed mutants with weird forehead snake-like growths. Director Stuart Gordon was riding high off of Reanimator's success when he adopted this 7-page H.P. Lovecraft story into From Beyond. Shout out to the hardest working prop in From Beyond, Crampton's leather dominatrix outfit. Giggity.
Humans are such easy prey. Ranson was the dork of Doddsville High.
Get undressed in there.
Are you ready? Here's Marty.
Gang, picture this. It's 1986 and you're browsing the horror section again, and there's this VHS cover with a maniac in a jester's cap holding a bloody axe, and you're thinking, okay, this looks like every other slasher ever made. But the byline says, from the makers of Friday the 13th, and you lock in, swiping Slaughter High and hitting the counter. The plot follows a group of popular kids who return to their old high school for a reunion, only to discover that their former victim, Marty Ranson, has turned into a chemistry-obsessed killer seeking revenge. And what makes this one special is how it commits to absolutely insanity. It's a movie where a guy gets electrocuted by a bed frame, and another victim gets dissolved in a bathtub of acid, all while our killer cackles like a madman. While watching, look for an Easter egg of a poster of 1982's classic horror movie Pieces. It's visible on the movie manager's office wall while he's on the phone with Carol. Hey Marty, where's the beef? It's a line from this movie.
Marty Ranson is still a dork, but tonight he's getting even.
Once upon a time, a long, long time ago, there was a fisherman's son named Peter.
Hey, remember when you were a kid and someone would tell you a scary version of a fairy tale that would absolutely mess you up for weeks? Deadtime Stories from 1986 is basically that experience cranked up to 11 and filtered through the mind of someone who had issues with traditional children's fables. This anthology takes 3 classic fairy tales, Little Red Riding Hood, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, and Jack and the Beanstalk, and twists them into wonderfully demented horror stories that feel like they were written by the Grimm brothers' worried, weird cousin. The Red Riding Hood segment features a witch who needs virgin blood for a resurrection spell, naturally, while the Goldilocks story becomes this bizarre home invasion thriller where a woman breaks into a house occupied by psychotic criminals. This was made with almost no budget. In the first segment, Scott Valentine has a limp from an injury just before the shooting, and in the third segment, Melissa Leo wore a bulky orange sweater to hide a cast from a broken arm. This movie had red flags everywhere.
I'm sorry things didn't work out between us. You are kind of cute.
It's body surf!
Here's one that hits different if you grew up during the height of the Satanic Panic. And I'm assuming most of us did. It's 86's Trick or Treat, and it's basically every parent's nightmare about heavy metal music come to life. Except it's so over the top that it accidentally becomes the best argument for rock and roll ever put on film. The story follows Eddie Weinbauer, a metalhead outcast, I think we all were at that time, whose hero, rock star Sammy Kerr, dies in a horrible hotel fire, then comes back from the dead through a backwards masked record to help Eddie get revenge on his bullies. And what starts out as your typical picked-on kid gets supernatural help story quickly spirals into absolute madness when Sammy decides that, you know what, everyone needs to die in wildly elaborate ways, including electrocuting a guy through his Walkman and possessing the high school sound system. The movie features actual metal legends Gene Simmons and Ozzy Osbourne in supporting roles, which gives it this weird legitimacy that makes the whole thing even more surreal. During the Halloween party scenes, extras can be seen wearing Billy Bob Broccoli and Chuck E. Cheese mascot costumes from Showbiz Pizza and Chuck E. Cheese. This movie has such a seminal place in my childhood. You're going to love it if you haven't seen it, and I hope to God you have.
Who listened to their music, as sick as they are.
Reverend, let me ask you a question. This album, Do It Like a Dog. Now, this...
A desperate band of nuclear survivors stumble upon shelter where they seek protection from deadly radioactive rain.
Now, imagine if someone watched Alien and said, you know what this needs, guys? A lower budget, worse acting, and a monster that looks like it was made out of paper mache and broken dreams. And that's basically 1987's Creepozoids. And honestly, that description makes it sound way worse than it actually is. Because this thing, it's got tons of heart. It's set in a post-apocalyptic 1998. A group of survivors take shelter in an abandoned laboratory where they encounter mutated rats, killer babies, and a monster that looks like someone's first attempt at sculpting after huff and paint. Director David Duchovny was working with a tiny Roger Corman-like budget. But this film was the first film produced by famed B-movie scream queen Linnea Quigley, and I guess that gives it some huge credit for sure. By the way, this is like a little trivia fact. Linnea Quigley's feet are so small she had to wear children's boots while on set, and I think that's super cute for her.
Tell me what you did. Tell me how you did it. I want to finish your experience.
Man, picture the most uncomfortable family reunion you've ever been to. Then add in tentacles and experimental genetics, and you're maybe just halfway to understanding how wild the Kindred from 1987 gets. This popularly weird creature feature follows John Hollins as he discovers his late mother was conducting illegal genetic experiments that resulted in his having a monstrous half-brother living in the basement of the family home. And monstrous doesn't even begin to cover it. It's like part octopus, part human, and part what happens when special effects artists have wild nightmares. Rod Steiger shows up as the villain and delivers every line like he's performing Shakespeare in a wind tunnel. Rod Steiger performed his own stunts in this scene that involved him being doused with a 55-gallon drum of methyl cellulose, which was just slime, basically, but shout out to Rod, man.
It's Zombie High with Drop Dead Guys.
You said you hated this place.
I've changed my...
If you take the basic concept of Invasion of the Body Snatchers and set it in a prestigious boarding school and then completely forget to make it scary, and if you did this in 1987, you'd probably come up with Zombie High. And it's a movie that's somehow completely unhinged and surprisingly boring, which is actually an achievement in itself. But here's the saving grace. We have 80s hottie Virginia Madsen, and she plays a scholarship high school student, although at the time she was 26, who discovers that her elite academy is turning students into mindless automatons through some kind of bizarre brain surgery. Director Ron Link was clearly going for some kind of social commentary about conformity and probably class warfare, but it gets lost somewhere between the acting and special effects that looks like they were done by the drama club. Zombie High is a great flick to watch. It's a comfort movie. I wouldn't get too much into it, though.
I just had a fall. But they fixed me up at the infirmary.
By fate, two men are born on the same day. By destiny, they die at the same moment.
Sounds like, in retrospect, I was bagging on Zombie High. I was not. Virginia Madsen was in it. Remember, was it Fire and Ice? Remember that one? Ugh. When you cross Ghost with Death Wish and filter it through the lens of someone who clearly watched way too much Italian horror, you're going to get Retribution from 1987. It's a revenge from beyond the grave story that takes the concept of supernatural justice and beats it to death with a baseball bat made of pure rage. Dennis Lipscomb, who plays a suicidal man who survives a jump from a building only to become possessed by the spirit of a murdered gangster seeking revenge. And director Guy Magar was working with a tiny budget, but managed to create some genuinely creepy atmosphere, especially in the scenes where Lipscomb's character starts transforming from mild-mannered sad sack into unstoppable murder machine. The whole thing has this weird spiritual connection to our tentacled friend from Kindred. Both movies are about characters discovering they're not who they thought they were, except instead of finding out you have a monster brother, you find out you're sharing headspace with a very angry dead person who really, really wants to settle some scores.
Hey, what's going on here?
I'm gonna need everyone to be really brave and have an open mind if you're gonna watch this one. You know that friend we all had who was absolutely convinced their boyfriend or girlfriend was cheating despite having just zero evidence? Well, imagine if that guy had access to power tools and absolutely zero impulse control. That's basically the entire premise of 1987's Killing Spree. Tom Russo is a paranoid airplane mechanic who becomes convinced his wife is sleeping with literally everyone she meets. So he decides the logical solution is to murder them in crazy creative ways, which seem way cheaper than couples therapy, I guess, in the moment. And the real kicker, his victims don't stay dead and they come back as zombies, which transforms this from your typical jealousy-driven slasher into something that feels like Evil Dead directed by a high school shop teacher. Director Tim Ritter was working with a reported budget of $75,000, but the finished product looks like it was made for about $20 in a case of Bud, starring a guy with the absolutely magnificent name of Asbestos Felt, whose over-the-top acting makes this one of the most entertaining horror movies in history, hands down. This was filmed in 12 days, with the crew working 14 to 16-hour days. Talk about a passion project. Let's give this the props it deserves.
He was just telling me how much he pleased his girlfriend in bed.
Get out of my house right now before I throw you out, you big ass!
I can't fix it. I think we better check out this island.
American Gothic from 1987 is a movie that starts as a simple stranded travelers meet creepy family story and evolves into something so beautifully insane that it makes anything else on this list look subtle by comparison. Well, aside from Killing Spree, because that was a gem. When a group of friends crash land on a remote island, they encounter Fanny and Paul, an elderly couple who seem stuck in their 1930s and treat their 3 adult children like they're still in elementary school. Rod Steiger, making his second appearance on our list, and Yvonne DiCarlo create this incredibly disturbing dynamic where traditional family values are taken to their most horrifying extreme. Director John Hughes was clearly having a blast with the concept of American family dysfunction, creating scenes that are simultaneously hilariously and deeply, deeply disturbing. Despite the title, the entire film was made in Canada. However, the original title was just simply Kids, and I guess you can make that anywhere.
Folks weren't too kind of Victor, so he stayed hidden in his daddy's house, out in the bayou.
Hey gang, welcome to 2006. Here is our bonus flick. And I already know what you're thinking. Why are we jumping from 1986 and 87 to 2006? Well, sometimes a movie comes along that perfectly captures the spirit of an era it wasn't even made in. And Hatchet is exactly that kind of beautiful anomaly. Written and directed by Adam Green, this love letter to 80s slashers follows a group of tourists on a New Orleans swamp tour who encounter Victor Crowley, a local legend turned very real nightmare. What starts as a simple haunted tour quickly turns into a bloody free-for-all when Kane Hodder's Victor Crowley starts taking out each tourist one by one. And trust me, this guy makes our chemistry-loving friend from Slaughter High look subtle by comparison. Kills are great and brutal, and some actually had me look away. The film has zero CGI in post, aside from removing some wires. If you watch the first 3 Hatchet movies in a row without opening and end credits, it would be one interrupted storyline revolving around about 4 days. That's goals, people. That's awesome.
We're all gonna die.
Gen X horror movies were incredibly special. They spawned new genres, new franchises, and cast the mold for everything to come. They pushed boundaries and blurred lines and were really the last front line against big-budget green screen slop. A load of what we just went over were made for close to nothing and really relied on an enthusiasm of the cast, practical effects, and innovative storytelling. Here's the thing though, there's loads more to dig into. What movies can you not believe no one has seen yet? Spam those comments with your favorite obscure titles as I continue on, seemingly never ending, to unearth every Gen X horror movie ever made. Love you guys. And as always, stay cool.